I was about to lie down on the exam table when the nurse ran toward me, grabbed my arm hard, and whispered, "Don't go in. This is a trap." And when I saw my husband walking through the restricted door, wearing that smile I'd already learned to fear, I thought I was going to pass out. That scene won't leave my mind. It's like my body recorded that exact second. The closest I've ever been to losing everything without even realizing it. The nurse squeezed my arm so tightly I felt her fingertips dig into my skin. It wasn't a professional touch. It was a desperate one. A touch from someone who knew I was about to step into something with no way back. Her eyes, my God, her eyes were wide open in a way no nurse ever looks. Healthcare professionals don't show panic. They hide fear so they don't scare the patient. But she was scared. Scared for me. And that shattered something inside me. The hallway, which moments earlier felt cold and impersonal, suddenly turned threatening. Footsteps echoed too far away. Doctors said something, but their voices came in distorted waves. The bright white lights felt harsh, almost painful to look at. I felt the air leave my lungs. "Don't sign anything. Do you hear me?" she whispered. "Nothing, not a single form." I froze. Before I could ask what was happening, before my mind could even begin to organize itself, the side door, the one reserved only for staff, opened. And he walked in. Mauricio, my husband, holding an access card he had no business having, one he couldn't possibly justify, one that made absolutely no sense in his hands. His smile was too perfect, rehearsed, the kind you put on when you're trying to hide the real intention. But his eyes were ice cold, and I had learned to distrust him by his eyes. It was always the eyes. When he'd come home irritated and say, "Everything's fine," it was his eyes that revealed the truth. When he'd say, "I did this for you," it was his eyes that showed different motives. When he'd say, "Trust me," it was his eyes that warned me to do exactly the opposite. And at that moment, his eyes screamed the entire truth. He was there for a hidden reason, and that reason depended on me. Or rather, on my signature. The nurse stepped forward, blocking his path, like a shield, like someone who knew she was breaking protocol to prevent a tragedy. "Sir, you can't enter this area." He ignored her completely. He looked at me the way someone looks at a document that needs to be signed, not at the woman he married. "Helena, sweetheart, everything's fine. You just need to sign, that's it." His voice was soft, perfect, controlled. And that's what terrified me. Mauricio only got that gentle when he wanted me to do something I would never do if I were thinking clearly. My legs trembled. My heart shot into my throat. My hands tingled. I looked down at the form in my hands and I didn't recognize it. It wasn't the document I'd seen at my appointment. It wasn't the same terms. It wasn't the same wording. It was a different form, different content, different purpose. It felt like I was holding a ticket to a destination I would never choose. A destination someone else wanted to force me into. The nurse carefully pulled the clipboard out of my hands. She looked at the page, read 2 lines, and her face went pale. Suddenly, she tucked the clipboard behind her body, the way someone hides evidence of a crime. "Helena, look at me." I did. "You're not authorized for this procedure. This is not what they told you it would be." I felt the ground slide away beneath my feet. Mauricio stepped forward, fast, determined. The nurse lifted her arm, blocking him, her whole body tense. That was when his mask fell for the first time. The smile vanished. His expression hardened. His brow dropped. His jaw clenched. And he said in a low, dangerous tone, "Helena, sign, now." I had never heard him use that voice against me in public. Usually, that tone was reserved for behind closed doors, where no one else could hear it. But there, in the hospital, with the nurse protecting me, He couldn't hold himself together. And in that second, in that look, in that short breath of his, I understood something that split me open. The surgery wasn't about my health. It was about some plan of his, some interest of his, something where I was merely the key piece, but never the protagonist. My whole body went cold, and I knew with painful clarity, if I lay down on that table, maybe I wouldn't come out the same. Or maybe I wouldn't come out at all. The nurse gently pushed me backward. "Come with me, now." And it was right there, in that exact moment, that my life began to fall apart, so it could finally be rebuilt. I wish I could say all of this started at the hospital. It would be easier. It would be more bearable to believe the trap was born there, in that cold hallway, in that badly lit room. But the truth is nothing starts out of nowhere. That day was just the peak, the end of a path I'd been walking without noticing, step by step, stumble by stumble, silence after silence. Because we don't just wake up one day inside a trap. We're led into it, slowly, with fake affection, with staged concern, with decisions made for our own good. And I had been led for years. A month before it all happened, I started feeling this weird pain on my right side. Nothing extreme, nothing that really alarmed me. I could have waited a few days, but all it took was me casually commenting, "Mauricio, I've got this little pain right here." He dropped his phone like I'd just announced a tragedy. "You always ignore your symptoms, Helena. I'm going to schedule an appointment for you. Someone has to take care of you, right?" In that moment, I heard a hidden compliment. Someone has to take care of you. It sounded sweet coming from someone who, in theory, loved me. But what I see now is something else entirely. It wasn't care. It was control dressed up as concern. He booked the appointment without asking what day worked for me, without asking about my schedule, without asking about my workload. And I, trying to avoid an argument, let it slide, like I always did. At the appointment, the doctor was clear. There was no urgency. We could run some tests, monitor it, try anti-inflammatory meds, give my body time to respond. I walked out feeling lighter, relieved, almost happy. But in the car, Mauricio was off, tense. He looked at me with that expression I already knew too well, half impatient, half judgmental, half "you didn't get it at all." "Helena, you misunderstood. The doctor said it's better to operate as soon as possible." I frowned. "She literally said there's no rush." He let out a long, heavy sigh, the same one he always used when he wanted me to feel small. "You never pay attention." I listened carefully. She said it would be better to take care of it before it gets worse. And then came the sentence that killed any reaction I might have had. "Trust me, I just want what's best for you." I looked away. I always avoided arguing with him in the car, always. It was my way of surviving the relationship. But inside, something shifted. Something didn't add up. 2 weeks later, Mauricio came home early, really early, a time that was practically impossible for him. I was making dinner. He walked in holding a folder and smiling, way too big. "Helena, I've scheduled your surgery." I froze with the spoon in midair. Surgery? But that wasn't urgent. He raised the folder like it was proof. I already handled everything. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. It felt like a slap. Tomorrow? Mauricio, I have work. Laura has a test. I haven't even prepared. He hit his hand on the table, not hard enough to break anything, but hard enough to shut me up. "I'm doing this for you, because you never take care of anything. If it were up to you, you'd stay suffering for months." That sentence, "you never take care of anything," he'd been using that line since the beginning of our marriage, and it always worked. It always made me feel guilty, always made me doubt myself, always shoved me into the role of irresponsible child. I didn't see it as emotional abuse back then. I just thought that's how he is. But that night, while I did the dishes with a shaking hand, something deep down in me knew something was off. In the days leading up to the surgery, a few things happened that now make perfect sense. He started coming home from work earlier than usual. He accidentally grabbed my phone instead of his more and more. He kept asking about my email password like it was no big deal. He insisted on keeping my documents safe so they wouldn't get lost. He micromanaged my schedule, my appointments, my conversations. And the worst part? He started sleeping too easily, like his conscience was spotless, or like he was at peace because his plan was moving along. I, on the other hand, felt like I was sleeping with a weight on my chest. I'd wake up in the middle of the night with the feeling that decisions were being made about my life, without me. And they were. At the hospital, things were strange from the start. When I arrived, he was already there. Mauricio never arrived anywhere before me, not even for family parties. But that day, he was early, anxious, on his phone, talking quietly to a man in a white coat. When he saw me, he put on that rehearsed smile. "Babe, just sign this real quick. It's just to speed things up." I took the paper, and even before reading it, I felt it in my body. Something was wrong, very wrong, because he was way too nervous, too rushed, too fixated on my face while I read. Like he was watching my reaction, like he was measuring my attention, like any hesitation from me could ruin his plan. I tried to read, but he put his hand on the form, covering part of it. "It's just the basics, Helena. You don't need to go through everything. You trust me." And that was when my body reacted before I did. I trembled, just a little, but I did. And he noticed. His eyes narrowed for a split second. And in that instant, I realized he had seen that I was finally starting to suspect something. It was the first time I felt afraid of him that morning, but it wouldn't be the last. When Nurse Renata showed up, I noticed right away that something was different about her. Nurses don't run. Nurses don't frown like that. And nurses don't grab a patient's arm hard enough to leave a mark. When she looked at Mauricio, I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen from any hospital staff member before. Suspicion, alert, fear. And then she said the words that stole the air from my lungs. "You know this isn't the procedure that's in the system, right?" My vision went dark for a moment. Why? Why would Mauricio change a surgery? Why push so hard? Why did he need my signature that badly? Why did I feel so used, so pressured, so pushed out of my own life? I didn't have the answers yet, but for the first time, I was finally asking the right questions. I was shattered, but it wasn't the kind of breaking that destroys you. It was the kind that revealed what was always there. My whole life, I'd stayed quiet to keep the peace. My whole life, I backed down to avoid arguments. My whole life, I accepted everything because he just wants to help. But there, in that hospital, I finally saw what was hiding underneath. It wasn't help. It was control. It was strategy. It was fake urgency. And everything was about to be exposed. His mask, his truth, his intention, and finally, there's something no one ever tells us. When the truth begins to surface, it never shows up all at once. It comes in fragments, in small details, in tiny cracks in the story we've been told for years. In that hospital, before everything blew up, those fragments started appearing in front of me. And the more I looked, the more I realized my entire life had been built on a script I never wrote. I still felt that strange tightness in my chest when Nurse Renata took the form from my hand. She read fast, her eyes moving over the lines with the skill of someone who's used to spotting dangerous paperwork. Suddenly, her brow tightened. She pointed to a section and motioned for me to look. "Helena, did you read this part?" I leaned in. There, in the middle of the paragraph, hidden among technical hospital terms, were two expressions that glued themselves to my mind: risk of extended temporary incapacity, financially responsible party, and secondary beneficiary. My stomach dropped. Was this here before? I asked, my voice barely audible. She shook her head. Not in the form you signed at your appointment. I checked the record. She turned the page again so I could see the bottom. There it was, small, nearly hidden. Revision 3. Revision 3. 3 different versions of a document about my health, about my body, about my life. I only signed once at the appointment, I whispered. Renata gave me a look that said, I believe you. I know, that's why I'm worried. She asked me to wait a moment, then went to a computer at the nurse's station. She swiped her badge, typed something in, and I could only see her reflection in the glass, the tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes narrowed at the screen. When she came back, her face was even more serious. Helena, listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. Okay. There are 2 surgical requests linked to your name. One is from Dr. Beatrice, the simple outpatient procedure you were told about. The other was added later. It's more invasive. My pulse spiked. More invasive? How? She took a slow breath. It includes hospitalization, it includes potential temporary incapacity, and it opens the door for a medical leave claim. I didn't fully understand all the technicalities, but I understood one thing with absolute clarity. If something went wrong, someone would financially benefit from it, and that someone wasn't me. Then a memory hit me, sharp, sudden, like a slap. A conversation I overheard weeks earlier. Mauricio on the phone, pacing the living room, thinking I was showering. If she's put on medical leave, we can cover the bills for a while. Pause. He let out a low chuckle. Yeah, the insurance covers it. She just has to sign. I'll convince her. Back then, I brushed it off, thought I'd misunderstood. I was so used to doubting myself that my mind always rushed to the same explanation. I must be imagining things. But now, standing there in the hospital, holding that altered form, the words came back like a haunting echo. Convince, sign, insurance, leave. And suddenly, all the pieces clicked into place. This wasn't a surgery to take care of me. This wasn't love. This wasn't concern. This was leverage, a chance for him to control my time, my decisions, my finances, my documents, our home, our daughter, my entire life, under the pretext of my medical incapacity. While I was still trying to absorb everything, Renata urged me to see the OR room before anything else. Come with me. I want you to see it with your own eyes. When we stepped inside, a chill ran down my spine. I'd taken my own mother to surgery before. I knew what a prepared operating room should look like. Table set, sterile sheets in place, equipment turned on, everything ready. But this room, it looked thrown together in a rush. Lights still being adjusted, some flickering, the monitors off, the surgical table without a sterile cover, the instrument tray, out of place. Because it was wrong, all wrong. Some tools didn't match a simple outpatient procedure. One of them, I didn't know the name, but I recognized the shape. My mother had mentioned it years ago when she underwent a major surgery. I whispered, afraid the room itself would hear me. This doesn't look like something simple, does it? Renata placed her hands on her hips, doing her best to contain her frustration. These instruments shouldn't be here for the type of procedure listed in your original file. Someone altered your request. Someone. I already knew who, but admitting it still hurt. And right then, he walked in through the side door, as if he owned the place, as if that hallway were just an extension of our home, as if he had the right to follow me everywhere, even into an operating wing. When I saw the access badge in his hand, one question cut through me. How far has he already gone without me knowing? Because this wasn't just about today. It was about every time he'd made decisions for me behind my back. Every time he used my name, my signature, my trust, as if they were his. He approached with that familiar, rehearsed smile. Everything's fine, sweetheart. They paused the procedure because of some silly bureaucracy. Just sign this and we're good. I looked at the paper he held. It wasn't the form Renata had shown me. It was a different one, shorter, with blank spaces. What is this? Just a confirmation of authorization. Sign it. Renata stepped in immediately. She's not signing anything outside the system, sir. And then his expression shifted. Again. The mask slipped more. He turned to her, trying to sound calm. You're confused. She's anxious. She always misunderstands things. That's why I handle these details for her. How many times had I heard that? He'd say to his family, Helen is too nervous, poor thing. I take care of everything. He'd tell our friends, she's terrible with paperwork. I deal with it. He'd tell me, you can't handle stress. Let me decide. And slowly, he had taken ownership of my own life, my autonomy, my credibility, my right to be taken seriously. But here, that old line hit a different wall. Renata didn't buy it. She crossed her arms. I'm not confused, sir. I saw the records. I saw the alteration, and the patient said she wasn't informed. He inhaled sharply, pressed his lips together, then replied with venom. Patients who don't know what they want should be grateful to have someone to decide for them. It hit me like a punch, because there it was, spoken out loud in public. His truth. He didn't see me as an adult, or as a partner, or as someone capable of making her own choices. To him, I was someone to be managed, handled, controlled. While he spoke, my mind lit up like a dark room suddenly filled with light. The insurance policy he insisted on adding my name to. The talk about benefits if she's put on leave. The let me keep your documents safe. The you don't need to know these details. The it's too stressful for you. The wrong form at reception. The wrong instruments in the room. The signature that wasn't mine. The badge he wasn't supposed to have. His desperate need for me to sign. And now, the line, she doesn't know what she wants. I knew, not with doubt, not with fear, with certainty, he was getting ready to put me in a vulnerable position, physically and legally. And in that scenario, guess who would benefit? He would, with my information, my insurance, my medical leave, my name, my sedated body. I looked at Renata, and I saw in her face that she had reached the same conclusion. She didn't need to say it, but she did anyway. Helena, you almost walked into a surgery that wasn't yours. Not like this, not with this form, not with this authorization. That sentence was the final break, the end of doubt, the beginning of truth. In that hallway, in that hospital, in that slice of time, I finally saw who my husband really was. And worse, who I had allowed him to become in my life. And from that moment on, as painful as it was, I knew nothing would ever be the same. Not in that hospital, not in my home, not inside myself. I thought I had already seen the worst in that hallway. I thought Mauricio showing up with a restricted access badge, the altered document, and the wrong surgical room setup were already enough proof of everything. But I knew nothing. The real truth, the one that would destroy any lingering doubt inside me, was still about to hit. Because deep down, despite the fear, despite all the signs, a tiny part of me was still trying to believe it wasn't possible. He wouldn't do that to me. It must be some kind of mix-up. Maybe the hospital messed something up. I'm probably misunderstanding everything. That's how women like me survive men like him, creating softer stories than the reality. But in that moment, there was no room left for softer stories, only facts. 2 staff members and an administrator walked into the hallway. They weren't angry. They weren't nervous. They carried themselves like people who know something serious is happening. Renata walked up to them and spoke quietly but firmly. I couldn't hear everything, only fragments. Alteration, unauthorized, risk, Data mismatch, false urgency. While she explained, I looked at Mauricio. And that's when I saw something that sent a chill down my spine, unlike anything I'd ever felt. Fear. He tried to cover it up, of course. Straightened his shirt, cleared his throat, forced that half smile he used whenever he was crafting a lie. But his eyes betrayed him. For the first time in years, I saw a man terrified of being caught. And then I understood. He wasn't scared for me. He was scared for himself. The administrator approached me. Miss Helena, your procedure was reevaluated. There are serious inconsistencies between the original order and the document presented today. Instantly, my palms began to sweat. Mauricio stepped forward, trying to insert himself between us. This is normal. This happens all the time. It's just bureaucracy. She turned her head slowly toward him. And you are? He swallowed. I'm her husband. Then why are you holding a restricted medical staff access badge? His face froze completely. He let out an awkward laugh. Oh, that? The doctor lent it to me, just to speed things along. Renata crossed her arms. No doctor would ever lend an access badge. Ever. Mauricio turned to me. Helena, say something. They're making you nervous. You know I'm only trying to help. I looked at him and felt something inside me crack. That sentence, I'm only trying to help, had always been the trap, the leash, the excuse, the glue that kept me small. But there, it sounded hollow, manipulative, dead. I said nothing, and that silence was more devastating to him than anything I could have screamed. He fidgeted, his hands shook, his breath quickened. The desperation started showing. Renata handed the administrator the altered form. This document wasn't signed by the patient, and it doesn't match her medical file. The administrator opened it, read, and her entire expression changed. She raised her eyes slowly toward Mauricio. Sir, who filled this out? He forced a tight, strained smile. Oh, I just helped. My wife doesn't understand these things very well. I always handle this for her. Renata cut in sharply. But the signature isn't hers. The administrator turned the paper toward him and pointed at the signature line. You do understand that falsifying a medical document is a crime, correct? It was like a silent bomb went off between us. Mauricio went completely still. His face lost color. His fingers trembled. Sweat gathered on his forehead. It just looks similar. It's just similar. She was nervous when she signed. The biggest lie I'd ever heard his mouth. And at that moment, something inside me shut off. My doubt, my hope, my denial, gone. I saw him clearly for the first time. A man who had forged my signature, who had altered my procedure, who wanted me unconscious on a table for reasons that had nothing to do with my health. Suddenly, everything I'd refused to admit before came crashing down. Renata pulled out another sheet, a system printout. Another point, the active surgery order includes a 3-day hospitalization, but the patient's file shows no medical reason for that. The administrator added, and the most serious part, the secondary beneficiary listed for the hospitalization is you, sir. A shock shot through my body. That was it. That was the whole plan. He needed my hospitalization, my temporary incapacity, the medical leave, the insurance payout, the financial benefit. He would gain money, he would gain control, he would gain power. He would gain everything if I lost mine. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't concern. It wasn't love. It was strategy. Cold, calculated strategy. I was married to someone who would do anything, absolutely anything, not to lose control. Even if it meant risking my autonomy, my body, my freedom, maybe even my life. The administrator took a breath and signaled to the staff. The procedure is officially suspended. Any attempt to continue will be treated as a serious violation. Mauricio exploded. "You can't do this! She is my wife! I decide what's best for her!" His shout echoed down the hallway. And for the first time, he said the quiet part out loud. I decide what's best. That was the moment I decided for myself, for my daughter, for the part of me I had buried to survive. I finally understood I couldn't go back. I couldn't trust him. I couldn't pretend. I couldn't stay. Mauricio wasn't just controlling, he was dangerous. And from that moment on, no matter how scared I was, I would not obey him again. I wish I could say that when the hospital suspended the procedure and Mauricio's face twisted in panic, I felt powerful. I wish I could tell you that in that moment I became fearless, a woman ready to confront everything head on. But that's not what happened. The truth is, I was shaking. Not a small tremor, a full body shake, the kind that feels like your soul is trying to escape while your body forgets how to move. My fingers tingled, my mouth went dry, my legs felt like sand. It was as if my entire being knew something terrible had almost happened and was only now catching up. Renata noticed immediately. She leaned in and whispered, "Breathe with me, Helena." And for the first time that day, someone said my name with gentleness. No hidden motives, no control, no authority disguised as affection. Real care, human care, rare care. I inhaled slowly, trying to make the hospital stop spinning around me. When security approached Mauricio and told him to step back, I saw something in his face that, in another time, I would have tried to soften. Because that's who I used to be in our marriage. If he got angry, I calmed down. If he yelled, I quieted myself. If he pushed, I stepped aside. If he created chaos, I became the stability. I was the emotional balance of the relationship, and he loved reminding me of that. But there, in that hospital, there was no balance left. Only truth. And the truth was, I was afraid of the man I had shared a bed with for years. Afraid. That word burned inside me. And admitting it, even silently, was like a heavy door swinging open inside my chest. A door I hadn't dared touch for years. I couldn't unsee it anymore. I couldn't sugarcoat it. I couldn't excuse it. Mauricio was dangerous, and I needed to survive. When he realized the hospital wasn't backing down and the situation was slipping through his fingers, he tried walking toward me again. He dropped his voice, that soft, syrupy tone he always used to twist my guilt. "Love, you're scared for no reason. They exaggerated. Come here, let me explain." But this time, it didn't land. It didn't break me. It didn't work. He reached out to touch my arm, but Renata stepped between us. And I watched his expression shift. It was subtle, but I saw it. The tightening of his jaw, the flash of anger, the mask slipping. For a fraction of a second, I saw who he truly was. And that fraction was enough for something new to wake up inside me. A survival instinct. Right there, without planning, without strategy, a new version of me began forming. I didn't need to confront him. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to prove anything. All I needed to do was stay quiet, observe, and let him unravel on his own. Because that was his weakness. He always exposed himself when he lost control. Always. And all I had to do was let it happen. The administrator walked up to me and spoke gently. "Helena, we will document everything. This is no longer between you and your husband. This is a case of fraud and attempted manipulation of a medical procedure." Her words made my throat close. Not between you and your husband. For years, Every pain I had was reduced to a marital issue, a woman's drama, a relationship misunderstanding. But now, for the first time, professionals were calling it what it was: fraud, manipulation, violation. Renata added softly, "What happened here today is serious, Helena, and you have the right to protect yourself." Right. Another word I wasn't used to hearing in relation to myself. The administrator explained, "We'll prepare a full report including the original surgical request, the altered request, the misuse of the access badge, the forged signature, the matched IP address, and his behavior today. You may take this to your attorney and to the authorities if you choose." If I choose. It stunned me. The idea that I had agency, that my choice mattered, that I could decide something without him deciding first. I took a breath. I choose to proceed. Simple words, but inside me, they were monumental. From there, the hospital guided me into a small room. The doctor spoke with surprising gentleness. "Helena, your exam only indicated a simple procedure. We can reschedule it, safely, properly. But honestly, the most important thing right now isn't surgery. It's your safety. Safety." The third time that word had been spoken to me that day. I nodded. "I'm not having surgery right now. Not like this. Not with all this happening. I need to get my life in order first." He agreed. "When you return, come because you chose to, not because someone pushed you." That sentence tattooed itself inside me. When you return, come for you. When Renata walked me to the elevator, I felt like I was floating. Empty, shaken, still wearing my clothes, but feeling as exposed as if that hospital gown were still tied behind my back. Right before the elevator doors opened, she turned to me. "Helena, you don't know me, but I see women like you every day. Many walk out blaming themselves. You're not wrong. You're not imagining things." My eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," I whispered. She continued, "If he tries to deny, twist things, call you unstable, remember what you saw today, what you heard, what the system showed. Truth doesn't depend on his version." The elevator arrived. I stepped inside. When the doors closed, I didn't just leave the surgical floor. I left a part of myself behind. The part that stayed quiet. The part that believed him. The part that obeyed. Outside, the hospital looked different. The noise sounded sharper. The world seemed both bigger and more dangerous. I knew Mauricio was somewhere nearby, boiling with rage, rewriting the story, practicing the lies he'd tell. But for the first time, I had something too. I had documentation. I had witnesses. I had professionals on record. I had evidence. I had truth. He had a voice, but I had everything else. I called my sister. She answered laughing, expecting good news. "So, how did it go? Are you out of anesthesia already?" I closed my eyes. "Carla, there was no surgery." Silence. "What do you mean?" "Something serious happened, very serious. And I need you." Her tone changed instantly, solid, protective. "Where are you?" "In front of the hospital. Stay there. I'm coming now." No questions, no minimizing. No, maybe Mauricio didn't mean it. Just, "I'm coming." And in that moment, I knew I wasn't alone. When I went back to the house, I didn't go to stay. Carla drove. I walked in with purpose. Mauricio wasn't home, probably still scrambling somewhere. I went straight to the bedroom, opened the closet, pulled out a suitcase. No screaming, no theatrics, no drama, just clothes, documents, my wallet, my health card, the hospital's report. Carla stood in the doorway, misty-eyed. "Are you sure?" I breathed, for myself this time. "Yes. If I stay, I don't know if I'll wake up tomorrow free or wake up in the middle of one of his plans." She swallowed. Then don't stay. My daughter got home when I zipped the suitcase. She froze when she saw it. I could have lied, but she'd lived enough lies under that roof. So I told her the truth. Not all the dark details, but the truth she deserved. She listened quietly, then tears streamed down her face. I always felt scared when he made decisions for everyone. I thought it was just me. I pulled her close. It wasn't just you. We both felt it, and I took too long to listen. Then she asked, "Are you leaving?" "I'm leaving the house, but not you. If you want to come with me, you can." She cried harder. "I want to." That was the strongest sentence I had heard in years. At that moment, I realized I wasn't running from a man. I was rescuing my daughter from a story that could have swallowed both of us. I picked up the suitcase, held her hand, left the key on the table, and walked out, not as someone escaping, but as someone beginning. I'm not sure exactly when the air shifted in that hallway. All I know is that suddenly it felt heavier, like the entire floor was holding its breath with me. Mauricio was being escorted a few feet away, but his eyes stayed locked on me. Predatory, desperate, disbelieving. He couldn't accept that his plan had slipped through his fingers. Not because of me, he never thought I had that kind of power, but because other people interrupted him. People he couldn't manipulate. People who weren't under his spell. People who saw the stage props collapsing before the performance even started. And he had no script for that. Within moments, 2 more professionals appeared, the supervising doctor and the hospital's legal advisor. Renata let out a breath of relief when she saw them. The attorney approached first, all quiet authority. "We need to speak with the patient alone, without her companion." It was the sentence I didn't know I'd been waiting for. Mauricio jumped in front of us. "No, I'm her husband. You can't keep me out. She needs me." The attorney didn't blink. "Sir, your behavior is precisely why you cannot remain." He froze for half a second, then erupted. "You're falling for her lies. She doesn't even know what she's saying." Lies, confusion, emotional instability, his holy trinity. But this time, no one bought it. The supervising doctor stepped forward. "Sir, we need your ID and the access badge you're carrying." Mauricio's face lost all structure. "My ID? Why? This is ridiculous." The doctor simply extended his hand, and I recognized the hesitation that followed, the same one he had whenever he was hiding receipts, passwords, accounts, documents. After a long few seconds, he pulled out his wallet, stiff and reluctant. He handed over the ID, then, with a jerk, held out the badge. Renata glanced at me. For the first time that day, she allowed herself a tiny smile, and I knew what it meant. He's cornered. The attorney flipped the badge, checking the serial number. "This card belongs to another staff member. Would you like to explain how you obtained it?" Mauricio's eyes went wild. He sputtered out a laugh. "Oh, that? He dropped it. I just picked it up. I was going to return it." Renata cut in cleanly. "The employee reported it missing yesterday. When he came back to look for it, it was already gone." It was like someone poured acid over the last fragments of his mask. His breathing sped up. He stepped back, cornered. He knew. Everyone knew. The attorney added, her voice sharp but calm, "Possession of a medical staff access badge without authorization is a serious violation and constitutes intent to interfere with surgical operations." I didn't understand every legal term, but I understood the message. He was in deep trouble. Mauricio spun toward me. And then the tone. The tone he used for years to fold me like paper came sliding out of his throat. "Helena, sweetheart, listen to me. They're twisting things. You know me." Yes, I knew him. He took 2 steps toward me. The security guard reacted instantly. Mauricio raised his hands, pretending innocence. I was trying to protect you. You panic over paperwork. I always help you. His greatest hits, the phrases he used to shrink me into someone who needed managing. But now, they sounded pathetic, transparent, rotten. And for the first time in my life, I spoke back. No yelling, no crying, no trembling. Just truth. You didn't help me. You controlled me. The silence that followed cracked the air open. The attorney opened her folder, pulled out 2 sheets, placed them side by side, and turned them toward me. Miss Helena, this is the original request from your physician, and this is the altered request submitted 7 days later. I looked. I actually looked. The first, simple procedure, no hospitalization. The second, invasive surgery, up to 3 days of recovery, risk of temporary incapacity. My stomach turned so sharply I had to grip the counter to stay upright. Renata rested a steadying hand on my back. The attorney continued. The authorization for the second request was logged under an external IP address not belonging to the hospital. I frowned. IP? She explained. A digital fingerprint. It tracks where the login came from. Mauricio stepped back again. That means nothing. It could be an error. I never. The doctor interrupted. That IP address is registered to the residential network on your insurance file. My home. Our home. Renata's eyes met mine. This isn't suspicion anymore. This is evidence. Mauricio shouted, I didn't authorize anything. Then the attorney lifted a third document, and she delivered the final blow. Sir, this is your signature. It was attached to the altered request. His name, his handwriting, his signature, clear as day. He was caught. Fully, irreversibly. Mauricio's entire body seemed to collapse without falling. He slumped against the wall, red-faced, sweating, shaking. Then he snapped. Not in pain, not in regret, in anger. You ruined my life, Helena! The irony nearly made me laugh. Me? The woman who spent years walking on eggshells, shrinking, quieting myself, losing myself? I ruined his life? The attorney made the final call. You will be removed from the surgical area immediately. The procedure is blocked. This case will be escalated to the authorities. Mauricio lunged. Security restrained him. He screamed my name like an insult. Helena, you are nothing without me. Nothing! And something broke inside me, but not in the way he expected. For the first time ever, I didn't feel fear. I felt pity. Not for losing him, but for ever believing he had power. I looked straight at him, steady and whole. You never had power over me. You only had the silence I gave you, and I'm not giving you anything anymore. The attorney signaled. Security dragged him out. His voice still echoed down the hallway, but the door closed on him, opened for me. When the door shut behind Mauricio, the silence that filled the hallway wasn't empty. It was dense, full of everything I had suppressed for years, everything I had swallowed just to keep the peace. But beneath all that, there was something new, something unfamiliar, something I hadn't felt in so long that I almost didn't recognize it. Safety. My hands still trembled. My breath still came in choppy bursts. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of the man on the other side of that door. I was afraid of what would come next, yes. Of what he would do once he was no longer being watched. Of the lies he'd spin. Of the narrative he'd twist. Of the anger he'd carry home. But I also knew something with absolute clarity. I wasn't walking out of that hospital empty-handed. The hospital attorney looked at me with a firm, empathetic seriousness. Helena, we're going to document everything. What happened here is not a marital issue. It is a case of fraud and attempted manipulation of a medical procedure. Those words hit me like a shockwave, not a marital issue. For years, every bruise on my heart, every moment of discomfort, every violation of my boundaries was dismissed as relationship tension, miscommunication, stress. You're overreacting. But suddenly, professionals were calling it by its real names: fraud, manipulation, violation. Renata stepped closer. What you experienced today is serious, Helena, and you have the right to protect yourself. Right. A word I had rarely applied to myself. The attorney continued. We'll prepare a full report including the original surgical order, the altered request, the unauthorized badge, the forged signature, the traced IP address, witness statements, and your husband's behavior. You may share this with your legal counsel and the authorities. For a moment, I just stood there, absorbing everything. Then I nodded. Yes, I want that. The doctor gently guided me to a small consultation room. His voice was steady, reassuring. Helena, your exam indicated only a minor procedure. We can reschedule it safely when you are ready. But today, your priority is not surgery. It's your safety. There it was again. Safety. The word rang inside me like a bell. I'm not having surgery now, I said quietly. Not today, not like this. He nodded. When you return, come because it's your decision, not because someone pushed you. That sentence carved itself into me. When Renata walked me to the elevator, I felt hollow, like the shell of someone who had survived something enormous, but wasn't sure how to stand just yet. Right before the doors opened, she turned to me. Helena, you don't know me, but I see women like you every day, and many walk out thinking they imagined the whole thing. You didn't. You were right. My eyes burned with tears. Thank you, I whispered. She wasn't done. If he tries to deny this, twist it, call you unstable, remember what you saw today. Remember the forms, the signatures, the instruments, the badge, the IP address. You don't need his version of the truth. You have the real one. The elevator arrived, and I left the floor a different woman. Outside, the world felt painfully loud. Cars, voices, the city. Everything felt too big and too real. And somewhere out there, Mauricio was already rewriting the story. But now I had something he couldn't twist: evidence. I called my sister. She answered in her usual teasing tone. So, you're awake already? How'd it go? I swallowed hard. Carla, there was no surgery. Silence. Then her voice changed, solid, protective. Where are you? In front of the hospital. Stay there. I'm coming. No questions, no doubt, no minimization. Just, I'm coming. When we got home, I didn't go to stay. We walked in quickly. Mauricio wasn't there, probably still trying to salvage his image somewhere. I went straight to the bedroom, opened the closet, pulled out a suitcase. There was no yelling, no crying, no chaos. Just me. Folding clothes, collecting documents, choosing myself. Flashes came to me with every shirt I folded. You're too weak. You don't understand anything. Let me handle it. Don't question me. If not for me, you'd have nothing. And then today, forged signature, unauthorized surgery, financial gain, loss of autonomy, my life on the line. Carla stood by the door, her voice trembling. Are you sure? I zipped the suitcase. Yes. If I stay, I don't know if I'll be safe tomorrow, or if I'll wake up in the middle of another one of his plans. She nodded, swallowing hard. Then let's go. My daughter arrived from school as I walked into the living room with the suitcase. She stopped. Her eyes widened. Mom, what's going on? I sat her on the couch. I didn't give her the medical details, but I told her the truth. Her father had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. She listened, silent, too silent for her age. Then tears rolled down her cheeks. I always felt scared when he took over everything. I thought it was just me. I pulled her into my arms. It wasn't just you. We both felt it, and I should have listened sooner. She wiped her face. Are you leaving? I'm leaving this house, but not you. If you want to come with me, I want you with me. Her answer was immediate, whispered through tears, I want to go. That was the sentence that broke me open and stitched me back together all at once. I wasn't just leaving a marriage. I was protecting my daughter from growing up inside a story that would have taught her the wrong kind of love. We grabbed the suitcase, her backpack, my documents, keys. I left the house differently than I had every day for years. Because this time, I walked out knowing I might not come back. And that wasn't loss. It was liberation. You know, for a long time, I thought leaving that house would be the end of everything. The end of my marriage, the end of my stability, the end of the life I had spent years trying to hold together. But a few weeks later, I realized something I never expected. It wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The beginning of my real life. The life I should have been living long before I started shrinking myself, silencing myself, convincing myself that I deserved less. When I woke up on the first morning at my sister's place, with Laura sleeping on a mattress beside mine, I felt something I couldn't name at first. It took several minutes for me to recognize it. Peace. Not the fake peace that depends on keeping someone else calm. Not the kind you buy by swallowing your own voice. Real peace. Quiet peace. The kind that doesn't require permission. For the first time in years, I drank my coffee without someone watching me. Without choosing my words. Without monitoring whether my tone would set someone off. Without anticipating the next storm. For the first time in years, I took a deep breath, and the air actually reached the bottom of my lungs. I wrapped both hands around my warm mug and thought, so this is it. This is what freedom feels like. I won't lie to you. Everything didn't magically become perfect overnight. There were nights of crying, moments of guilt. Yes, guilt. Because women like us are trained to feel guilty even for saving ourselves. Moments I questioned whether I had overreacted. Moments I felt small again. Moments the silence felt too loud because I had lived in chaos for so long. But healing doesn't arrive in a single wave. It arrives in fragments, just like the truth. Healing came when I responded to a message without worrying about someone reading over my shoulder. Healing came when I cooked something my way without someone correcting me. Healing came when I laughed loudly in my sister's living room and realized it had been months since I'd laughed like that. Healing came when I wore lipstick just because I wanted to, without checking whether he'd approve. Healing came when I realized I existed outside of a man's expectations. And then, one day, Laura hugged me tightly and whispered, "Mom, I like you free." I cried until my chest hurt. I didn't know she had seen so much. Didn't know she had felt the tension in the house, the weight in the air, the fear woven into our daily life. Kids always know, even when we think we're hiding it. And in her hug, I understood the deepest truth of all. I didn't leave just for me. I left so she would never grow up thinking that control is love, that silence is respect, that shrinking yourself is normal. A few days later, I met with the social worker assigned to my case. I told her, he almost made a major medical decision about me without me. She nodded gently and replied with something that changed me. Almost. And the only reason almost didn't become tragedy is because you listened to your body. I didn't get it at first, so she explained. Before your mind understood what was happening, your body knew. Your hand trembled, your chest tightened, your breath changed, your eyes searched for help. Your body warned you, and you listened. That sentence planted itself inside my heart. And now, I want to say something to you, the woman reading this, the woman who might be living in a silent kind of pain. Maybe you're in a relationship that hurts. Maybe you've been normalizing disrespect. Maybe you hear things like, "You're too emotional. You're imagining things. You misunderstood. You're overreacting. You don't know what you want." Maybe you've been making yourself smaller to keep the peace. Maybe you think no one will believe you. Maybe you've been questioning your own reality. So let me tell you something from one woman's heart to another. Your body knows. Your body feels. Your body warns. Your body never lies. When your chest tightens for no reason, when your breathing gets heavier around him, when you feel constantly wrong, even when you're right, when you walk on eggshells, when you apologize for existing, that is not love. That is not safety. That is not home. You don't need a tragedy to validate what your intuition already knows. You don't need the worst moment of your life to believe yourself. The life you deserve doesn't start when he changes. The life you deserve starts when you change the direction of your next step. And that step doesn't have to be big. It can be small, quiet, barely visible to others. Just a quiet decision. I won't accept what hurts me anymore. And when you take that step, the world begins to rearrange itself around your courage. I'm living proof of that. Today, after everything I survived, I can say, I escaped a trap. And what remained inside me wasn't fear. It was strength. It was courage. It was life. If I made it out, you can too. A woman doesn't rebirth herself in one day. She rebuilds through choices, through boundaries, through truth, through each small step toward her peace. So this is what I wish for you. Peace, courage, strength, and a future that does not require anyone's permission to exist. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for walking with me this far. Thank you for choosing yourself, even if it's just by reading this.